Regardless, balancing your life is not an easy 1-2 decision. You don't get to just take a video from YouTube and make an immediate life decision based on that. This list was made about whenever I was 19 years old. And it also was the result of my relationship at the time flaming out. I found that by prioritizing my life in a certain way, I would be able to be more productive. I was a cold, heartless bastard back then, and I didn't understand the value of having people in my life, and I thought that I could do everything by myself. Let me explain. My number 1 and number 2 priority, which were back to back next to each other, was work and school. I believe that my education and work experience were more important than anything else on the planet. And I now, of course, disagree with that, and I'll show you the list later. But at the time, that's where I saw myself being the happiest. And frankly, I was. Furthering my education and being a workaholic was something that gave me joy. But of course, all good things come to an end. My third was family. And I did at the time hold them pretty high up, of course. I mean, top 3, it's pretty great, right? I've always valued family to a high degree, but if there was a family event and I had a work conflict, I would go to work instead of skipping work and going to the family event. And that happened a few times, and once COVID hit and I started to desperately miss my family, I regretted missing those events, of course. But back whenever I was early 19, late 19, this was my priority. Next was exercise. Now, at the time, I worked at a gym, so I was exposed and surrounded by a lot of people who were in great physical shape, and as a result, I was inspired to take it upon myself to get in shape as well. And honestly, I was to a certain extent. I wasn't like the biggest powerlifter on the planet. I was in good shape though. And I actually wanted to be a personal trainer and occupational therapist during this time, so I found it to be a high priority to be in shape. Next was business and personal education, which included a lot of reading, which I read a lot of books back then, way more than I do now. I actually kind of wish I would get back into that, but I definitely took that as a priority. And then as far as business development goes, I was working on a few things. None of them really came to fruition. They're not really interesting to talk about, but YouTube was kind of one of them. And this is also the time whenever my channel kind of blew up. So keeping it higher up my priority list made a difference. Next, relationship. And I was dating a girl named Jessica at the time, and we had our problems in our relationship. We both had issues in it, but I do regret keeping her so low. And I remember, because I had actually shown her this list and explained to her where my priorities were. I remember her telling her sister, and her sister could not believe that I would put her so low on the list. And man, looking back on it, like, it's really cringy to think about. And I feel really bad about it, of course, but at the time it made a lot of sense to me. And then last at number 7 was friends. So I had 7 main things that I focused on. And I had some friends back then. I don't have any of those anymore, as you could probably imagine, because I put them so low on the list. But I focused on myself a lot more than other people at the time. And as I grew up and matured a little bit, I understood the value of having people in my life that could bring value to me. My views shifted a lot, and thus brought the second list, which is one that I made probably a little bit over a year ago. And I did it more as a joke, because I'm looking back at the first list, I cringe, but I think this one makes a lot more sense. And honestly, I'm getting close to the point where I might even reevaluate it further, but I made this about a year ago, so around the age of 21. Up number 1 is family, and this is a huge one for me, and something I could talk about for hours about how family is important to me. But just to keep it very brief and simple, I would not be where I'm at in my life today without the support of my family. They're the reason I am successful and the reason why I'm here today. Therefore, they will always be my number 1 priority, because I know they will always be here for me. It's just how it is. I love them to death, and I would drop and do anything to help them. Number 2 and 3 are work and school. Now, that's basically an inverse from the first list. And I keep these next to each other, but honestly at this point, I'm just about to put school above work, because I am desperate to get my bachelor's degree and move on with my life. So it's almost worth it to me to lose some work experience in order to gain more college experience. Next, at number 4, this was the biggest radical change, was relationship. I have a girlfriend, And she knows that I will go to school and go to work before I see her. In fact, it's a conversation topic a lot. I mean, it's more of a joke than a serious thing where we talk about how, like, I don't want to go to work, I want to go see her. And we joke about, like, just skipping work. I don't do it, obviously, because I'm too responsible. But generally, I will choose attending my shifts and going to school over seeing her. And that's the only reason she's below on this list. It's not because I love her less than I love work, because I definitely love her a lot more than I love work. Oh, man. But as far as my time allocation goes, she's probably coming a little bit after that. Next up is friends, and I think I only technically have like one actual friend who doesn't even live in my state, so this doesn't really come up a whole lot, but when she is in town, I do try to make it a priority to see her. I wish I had more friends that I could see, but I'm kind of a hard person to get along with. Next up is exercise, which is hilarious because I almost never do that anymore because I'm so burnt out from doing everything else in my life. I rarely have the mental energy to force myself to physically do any exercise. Big change from whenever I was 19. I'm actually in a pretty bad shape, but I might try to work on it, maybe. Last but not least, personal education, which is definitely a fact, only because I have barely read. I had to force myself to read my last book. I reread The Happiness of Pursuit, finally, and I finally got it done. I haven't even started it yet, but I'm going to be reading 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. That's what it is, yeah. I'm going to be reading that eventually, hopefully, but I just haven't found the emotional energy to do it just yet. I haven't put anything about business stuff on there. Honestly, I'm kind of grouping that in with work at this point, but frankly, it's not as much of a priority for me to earn income from this. This is more of a fun thing for me and more of a personal challenge to see if I can even make this work. But it's definitely probably grouped in with work, but definitely not above my girlfriend. So it'd probably be somewhere around like number 5 or 6, maybe. So that goes into the topic, the title of this video, which I know took me a long time to get to the point, but I will do my best to make it brief from here. How to balance your life. And frankly, it is a completely individual choice. So there are people who become wildly successful in their professional life, but at a sacrifice to building a family and maintaining personal relationships. These people can earn very high in their income brackets. They can feel very personally satisfied with their work. However, they have to have sacrificed their time in other areas in order to make that work. And for some people, that's not worthwhile. There are other people making completely average incomes who have a wonderful family dynamic. They have 1 or 2 kids, they have a spouse that loves them, and they are satisfied with their life because they found meaning in what they do. And that is perfectly fine. And then there are other people who prioritize their family over everything. This is like your typical housewife, house husband, the spouse that stays home. And they've put everything into their family. And they can feel a great deal of satisfaction from helping those family members grow and develop and supporting them. But their professional development takes a huge dive as a result. They don't have a whole lot of work experience outside of home life, which many companies, unfortunately, don't value. And you have to find peace in that if that's what you've chosen to do. Regardless, balancing your life is not an easy 1-2 decision. You don't get to just take a video from YouTube and make an immediate life decision based on that. You have to choose where you allocate your time and resources in order to make the biggest impact. And some people are more predisposed to doing one thing over another. I could put all my energy into being a family man, but at the end of the day, I really value being a professional as well. I find having some kind of equal balance between these two things is really important for my own personal happiness. I find the most happiness whenever I have a balance of work life and personal life, where I can engage in hobbies and enjoyment while also developing my professional career. Now, I could work 50 to 60 hours a week, probably get promoted in the next year, and become a GM at the place that I work at. Unfortunately, by doing so, I will probably destroy my relationship, have to get rid of all my education, and probably not have any time to do things like this. And to me, that trade-off is not worth getting that promotion, even though I'd be making more money and closer to my end goal of being maybe a CEO, who knows. But to me, I like the balance, and that's what works for me. So you have to look inside of yourself and determine what makes you the happiest, and then from there, create a plan to attain that happiness. And if you're looking for balance, you have to make sure not to let one thing take priority over another. Now, it doesn't hurt to reevaluate once every year or two to see where you're at in your life and to see if you want to change your priorities. But generally, you don't want to allocate too much into one thing if you want to be a balanced individual, which is what I personally value. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, go ahead and give it a like. If you want to see more, subscribe. Comment down below your favorite color, and I will give you a heart. Do not forget to keep it casual.